What if success was learnable? What if success was not something reserved for a lucky few? What if wealth, confidence, achievement, and influence were not accidents, but patterns? Patterns that could be observed, patterns that could be practiced, patterns that could be repeated. For more than 20 years, Napoleon Hill dedicated himself to a question that most people never seriously ask. Why do some individuals consistently achieve extraordinary results while others, equally capable, struggle to move forward? Hill studied entrepreneurs, inventors, leaders, industrialists, individuals who created massive impact despite ordinary beginnings. He listened carefully, searching beneath their strategies and beyond their circumstances. He was not studying what they built. He was studying how they thought. Hill was searching for one thing, a philosophy of success. What he discovered surprised many people. Success was not built on talent alone, not luck, not timing, not secret connections. It was built on mindset patterns of thinking that influence decisions, persistence, relationships, creativity, and opportunity recognition. The book proposes something powerful. Success begins long before visible results appear. It begins internally. Before money changes, thinking changes. Before circumstances shift, identity shifts. Before achievement becomes visible, belief becomes stable. This is where transformation starts. Part 1: Desire. The emotional engine of achievement. Everything meaningful begins with desire. But Hill makes a crucial distinction. A wish is passive. Desire is active. A wish hopes. Desire commits. A wish says, "That would be nice someday." Desire says, "I will find a way." This distinction matters because the early stages of any meaningful pursuit are uncertain. Results are inconsistent. Feedback is limited. Doubt is common. Without desire, people stop. Desire provides emotional fuel during uncertainty. It keeps attention anchored when progress feels slow. It transforms effort from obligation into intention. Hill observed that successful people define their goals clearly. They know what they want, why they want it, and what they are willing to give in exchange. Clarity transforms motivation. When goals are vague, effort becomes scattered. When goals are specific, effort becomes directed. Decisions become easier. Priorities shift naturally. Hill introduced a simple process. Write your goal. Read it daily. Visualize it repeatedly. Its power lies not in complexity, but repetition. Repetition builds familiarity. Familiarity builds belief. Belief fuels action. Action creates momentum. Momentum changes everything. Part 2: Faith. Practicing belief before evidence. Faith is often misunderstood as blind optimism. Hill describes it differently. Faith is trained confidence. It is belief practiced before results appear. This is difficult because the human brain seeks evidence before commitment. But achievement requires reversing that order. Belief must precede proof. Hill explains that belief grows through repeated thought combined with emotion. Visualization makes the unfamiliar feel possible. Familiarity reduces resistance. Doubt frequently emerges not from impossibility, but from unfamiliarity. Faith changes interpretation. Setbacks stop feeling like verdicts and start feeling like information. Progress becomes a process rather than a test of identity. Successful individuals protect their belief carefully because belief influences persistence. Persistence influences outcomes. Faith does not remove difficulty. It changes how difficulty is experienced. Part 3: Autosuggestion. Identity is constructed. The conversation you have with yourself shapes your behavior more than external advice. Hill called this autosuggestion, deliberate mental input that influences the subconscious. Most people practice negative autosuggestion without awareness. They repeat limitations, fears, and assumptions. Over time, repetition turns thought into identity. But identity is not fixed. It is constructed through repeated attention. When individuals consistently expose themselves to ideas of growth, effort, and possibility, expectations shift. Expectations influence behavior. Behavior creates results that reinforce identity. This is why environment matters, media matters, Conversations matter. You become what your mind experiences repeatedly. Autosuggestion is not pretending. It is directing attention toward useful beliefs until they become natural. Part 4. Specialized knowledge. Learning with direction information alone does not create success. Hill noticed that high achievers focus on useful knowledge, knowledge that solves real problems and produces measurable improvement. They are selective learners. Instead of consuming everything, they learn what moves, outcomes. They collaborate with experts. They remain curious but intentional. In a world overflowing with information, direction becomes more valuable than volume. Learning becomes powerful when connected to action. Without application, knowledge creates the illusion of progress. With application, it creates capability. The difference between knowing and improving is implementation. Part 5. Imagination. The starting point of innovation. Every meaningful change begins as an idea. Hill believed imagination was one of the most underestimated success tools because it allows individuals to think beyond current limitations. Imagination connects desire to strategy. It allows people to design alternatives instead of accepting constraints. Successful individuals ask better questions. What if this worked differently? What would improvement look like? What has not been tried yet? Creative thinking expands opportunity because it introduces options. Without imagination, goals remain distant concepts. With imagination, they become solvable problems. Innovation is imagination applied consistently. Part 6. Organized planning. Structure creates progress. Ideas require structure. Hill explains that planning is rarely perfect at the start. Successful individuals expect adjustment. They treat planning as iterative, a living process rather than a fixed document. Action reveals information that thinking cannot. Feedback clarifies strategy. Mistakes provide direction. Planning reduces emotional decision-making and replaces it with intentional movement. Structure does not eliminate uncertainty, but it reduces chaos. Progress becomes visible when vision meets organization. Part 7. The mastermind principle. Growth through collaboration. Hill's most powerful observation involved relationships. A mastermind group multiplies thinking. Different perspectives accelerate problem solving. Accountability increases consistency. Isolation limits creativity because thinking becomes repetitive. Collaboration introduces possibility. Successful individuals intentionally choose environments that support growth rather than reinforce comfort. Your circle influences expectations. Expectations influence performance. Achievement is rarely individual. It is relational. Part 8. Decision. Momentum begins with commitment. Indecision consumes energy because it keeps the mind in analysis without movement. Hill observed that successful people decide faster than average, not recklessly, but decisively. They gather information, commit, and adjust as necessary. Waiting for certainty delays progress. Fear of criticism often creates hesitation. People attempt to avoid mistakes instead of pursuing improvement. But clarity emerges through action. Decision creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence encourages further action. Progress is frequently the result of imperfect decisions sustained consistently. Part 9. Persistence. The hidden advantage. Persistence is rarely dramatic. It does not look impressive in the moment. It happens quietly, daily effort repeated without immediate reward. Hill noticed a pattern. Many people do not fail because they lack ability. They fail because they stop too early. Progress slows, uncertainty increases, and doubt becomes louder than commitment. Temporary difficulty is often mistaken for permanent failure. Persistence changes probability. Each attempt provides feedback. Each adjustment improves direction. Each repetition strengthens capability. Over time, small improvements compound into visible results. What appears like sudden success is usually delayed recognition of sustained effort. Persistence also reshapes identity. When individuals continue despite uncertainty, they begin to trust themselves. Confidence grows from evidence of endurance rather than initial motivation. Motivation fluctuates. Persistence stabilizes. Hill described persistence as a skill that can be developed. It grows through clarity of purpose, emotional commitment, supportive environments, and deliberate habit formation. Consistency reduces the need for constant motivation because behavior becomes automatic. The difference between intention and achievement is oftentimes combined with persistence. Part 10. The subconscious mind. The silent driver. Much of human behavior operates below conscious awareness. The subconscious stores habits, emotional reactions, learned beliefs, and expectations. It influences decisions before logic becomes visible. Hill suggested that individuals can influence the subconscious intentionally through repetition, emotion, and imagery. Thoughts repeated frequently become familiar. Familiarity reduces resistance. Over time, familiar beliefs shape automatic behavior. This is why visualization improves performance. The brain responds to imagined experiences in ways similar to real ones. Mental rehearsal prepares emotional responses before real situations occur. Gratitude, goal repetition, and focused attention strengthen helpful patterns while weakening limiting ones. The subconscious does not judge whether a belief is useful, it reinforces what is repeated. Internal programming shapes external behavior. Changing results often requires changing internal patterns. First, Part 11. The brain as an opportunity filter. Hill described the brain as a filter rather than a neutral observer. Focus determines what becomes visible. When individuals focus on scarcity, obstacles dominate perception. When they focus on possibility, opportunities become noticeable. This does not deny reality. It changes interpretation. Two people can experience the same circumstances and notice different possibilities because attention directs awareness. Optimism is not naive positivity. It is strategic attention. It increases experimentation. Experimentation increases learning. Learning increases capability. Over time, perspective influences outcomes more than initial circumstances. The brain constantly receives more information than it can process. Focus decides what enters awareness. Where attention goes, action follows. Part 12. Intuition. Insight beyond analysis. Intuition is often misunderstood as guessing. Hill described it as accumulated learning, expressed quickly. Experienced individuals make rapid decisions because their subconscious has processed patterns over time. What appears instinctive is often recognition built through exposure and reflection. Many breakthroughs feel sudden, but they emerge from prolonged engagement with a problem. Intuition strengthens through experience, calm thinking, and willingness to act. Action provides feedback. Feedback refines pattern recognition. Trusting intuition does not mean ignoring logic. It means integrating conscious analysis with subconscious insight. Some of the most important decisions cannot be made through data alone. They require judgment developed through practice. Insight grows where attention persists. The interaction of persistence, subconscious, and focus. Hill's principles are interconnected. Persistence provides repetition. Repetition programs the subconscious. The subconscious shapes attention. Attention influences opportunity recognition. Opportunity recognition creates progress. This cycle explains why sustained effort produces nonlinear results. Growth appears slow until internal changes accumulate. Eventually, external results reflect internal transformation. Success rarely arrives as a single breakthrough. It emerges as a shift in perception, behavior, and identity reinforced over time. Emotional resilience is a competitive advantage. One of Hill's deeper observations was that emotional regulation influences achievement more than raw intelligence. Individuals who tolerate uncertainty continue longer. Those who reinterpret setbacks constructively learn faster. Emotional resilience allows persistence without burnout. Resilience is not the absence of difficulty. It is the ability to continue despite it. This creates a compounding advantage because learning continues while others withdraw. Confidence becomes less about certainty and more about trust in adaptation. Progress as feedback, not judgment. A major barrier to persistence is misinterpreting feedback. When effort does not immediately produce results, individuals often assume they are incapable. Hill reframed progress as information rather than evaluation. Every attempt reveals something useful. What worked? What did not? What needs adjustment? Viewing progress as feedback removes emotional pressure and increases experimentation. Experimentation accelerates improvement. Failure becomes data. This shift from judgment to learning sustains persistence long enough for compounding to occur. The quiet shift that changes everything over time. Something subtle happens. Effort stops feeling forced. Belief stops feeling fragile. Action stops requiring constant motivation. Identity changes. Instead of trying to succeed, individuals begin operating as someone who persists, learns, and adapts naturally. This internal shift is often invisible but decisive. Hill's philosophy suggests that achievement is less about acquiring new resources and more about stabilizing useful patterns of thinking. When thinking stabilizes, behavior follows. When behavior stabilizes, results become predictable. Part 13. The 6 Fears That Limit Potential. Napoleon Hill believed that success is not only about building useful beliefs, it is also about recognizing limiting fears. He identified 6 common fears that influence behavior, often without awareness. Fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of illness, fear of loss of love, fear of old age, fear of death. These fears are not weaknesses, they are human. But when unexamined, they shape decisions subtly. They create hesitation where action is required. They reduce expression where creativity is needed. Fear of poverty can create excessive caution, preventing investment in growth. Fear of criticism can silence ideas before they are tested. Fear of illness can create anxiety that reduces focus. Fear of loss of love can influence choices that prioritize approval over authenticity. Fear of old age can produce urgency without direction. Fear of death can either create paralysis or perspective. Hill emphasized that awareness weakens fear's control. Naming fear transforms it from invisible pressure into visible information. Action further reduces fear. Exposure builds familiarity. Familiarity reduces emotional intensity. Confidence does not eliminate fear, it changes the relationship with it. The philosophy of success. Across all 13 principles, one idea remains consistent. Success is intentional. It is not random luck. It is the cumulative result of thinking patterns practiced repeatedly over time. Desire creates direction. Faith sustains effort. Autosuggestion shapes identity. Knowledge improves capability. Imagination expands possibility. Planning creates structure. Collaboration accelerates thinking. Decision creates momentum. Persistence compounds progress. The subconscious stabilizes behavior. Focus reveals opportunity. Intuition refines judgment. Awareness reduces fear. These principles interact continuously. No single principle guarantees success. Their combination creates probability. Small improvements accumulate. Identity evolves. Results follow. Achievement becomes predictable when patterns become consistent. Applying the principles. Today, modern life introduces unique challenges: distraction, comparison, information overload, constant urgency. Hill's philosophy becomes more relevant in this environment because attention is increasingly fragmented. Application does not require dramatic change. It requires intentional repetition. You can begin with small actions. Choose one meaningful goal. Reduce negative input. Create consistent effort rather than intense bursts. Surround yourself with supportive environments. Interpret failure as feedback rather than identity. Progress builds confidence. Confidence encourages experimentation. Experimentation creates opportunity. The process reinforces itself. Success rarely comes from a single decision. It emerges from patterns sustained long enough to produce compounding effects. Why this book, Injurious Think and Grow Rich, remains influential because it addresses universal psychological challenges: doubt, impatience, fear of judgment, desire for improvement, uncertainty about direction. Technology changes rapidly, but human cognition evolves slowly. People still underestimate patience, still overestimate immediate results, still search for certainty before commitment. Hill's message challenges that tendency. Transformation is gradual. The gap between effort and visible outcome creates discomfort. Many stop there. Those who continue experience nonlinear growth. The book endures because it explains this invisible phase. The core messageth. The most powerful insight is simple, yet difficult to accept. External success follows internal change. You do not simply achieve different results. You become someone who produces those results consistently. You become more patient, more intentional, more resilient, more selective with attention, more comfortable with uncertainty. Success shifts from event to identity. This reduces emotional volatility because progress becomes expected rather than surprising. Achievement becomes a natural extension of behavior. Final reflection. Becoming the Person Hill's philosophy suggests that achievement is not about chasing outcomes. It is about becoming the person capable of producing those outcomes repeatedly. This transformation occurs through daily thinking patterns. Thoughts influence decisions. Decisions influence habits. Habits influence identity. Identity influences future results. Change rarely feels dramatic while it is happening. It appears gradual, then sudden. Consistency creates that shift. What once required effort becomes automatic. What once felt impossible becomes normal. The transformation is internal before it is visible. A closing thought: you do not need perfect timing. You do not need complete certainty. You do not need unlimited resources. You need clarity. You need belief. You need persistence. Success begins as an idea. It grows through repeated action, and it becomes reality through consistency. Think intentionally. Act courageously. Grow continuously, because the life you want does not begin with circumstances. It begins with the way you think. Here are 10 powerful lessons from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Simple, clear, and perfect for your audiobook summaries. 1. Desire is the starting point. Nothing happens without a strong desire. Not a wish, a decision. Clear goals create direction, energy, and persistence. Vague dreams equals weak effort. Specific desire equals focused action. 2. Belief comes before results. You must believe before you see proof. Faith is built through repetition, visualization, and emotional commitment. Your brain acts on what it expects to be possible. 3. Your self-talk shapes your identity. What you repeatedly tell yourself becomes your reality. Negative thoughts create hesitation. Positive, intentional thinking builds confidence. You become what you mentally rehearse. 4. Knowledge must be applied. Information alone does not create success. Successful people learn skills that solve problems and immediately use them. Learning plus action equals progress. 5. Imagination creates opportunity. Every business, invention, and breakthrough began as an idea. Creative thinking allows you to see possibilities others miss. Imagination turns desire into strategy. 6. Planning requires adjustment. The first plan rarely works perfectly. Successful people expect setbacks and refine their approach instead of quitting. Action reveals what thinking cannot. 7. Your environment determines growth. The people around you influence your standards, beliefs, and ambition. A mastermind group accelerates learning and accountability. Your circle shapes your future. 8. Decision builds. Momentum indecision creates stress and delay. Successful individuals decide faster and adjust later. Clarity comes from movement, not waiting. 9. Persistence beats talent. Most people stop too early. Consistency compounds. Even small effort repeated daily produces massive results. Persistence is the hidden advantage. 10. Fear is the biggest barrier. Fear of criticism, poverty, and failure limits action. Awareness reduces fear's power. Action weakens it. Confidence grows through exposure. The core lesson, most important: success is not random. It is the result of clear goals, strong belief, consistent action, supportive environment, long-term persistence. You don't just achieve success. You become the person capable of it.